We're here with Dr. Travis Stork at Marconi Restaurant on Lexington Avenue in Manhattan. Hi, Dr. Stork.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. As a host on the daily talk show, The Doctors, you lead a panel of experts and you field the audience's questions. So today I'd like to discuss how moms-to-be like me, as well as moms of newborns, can prevent the common cold. Can you give our viewers a few suggestions for averting colds?
Well, the number one thing, particularly when you're pregnant, you're a new mother, is trying to figure out how to avoid bringing germs into the home. And I think the number one thing is just hand washing. Regular soap and water is just as good as the strong antibacterial soaps. And so making sure that you're not touching your eyes and your nose, and especially, like I said, with a newborn at home, the germs are actually being brought home by the parents. And so it's making sure that before you come home that you're not bringing those germs from the workplace, home where you're maybe 1 or 2 week old, could catch one of these viruses and come down with a serious illness. And so the number one thing is just remember vigilant hygiene, and remember, you can't stop everything.
Right.
Sometimes, no matter what you do, you're going to get sick, your kids are going to get sick, but we can certainly take steps to prevent it.
Great. And because newborns can't take traditional medications, how can parents treat colds in their little ones?
Well, I think that it's a really frustrating thing because parents think, well, there's nothing I can do. But the reality is, a common cold, in my opinion, is best treated with natural methods anyway. There are all these products on the market, but they're not safe for kids. Mm-hmm. So what do I do in my own life? I use neti pots. I use saline washes, and I've teamed up with Arm & Hammer Simply Saline because one of the things they do that's so great is they have spray bottles. In fact, I'll show you one, just like this, where it sprays out. I don't know if anyone can see that, but it's saline and water. So there's nothing else in here but that. But what it does is it washes out all that mucus buildup, congestion, allergens, pollutants, whatever may be in the air, and it allows you to naturally break up that congestion in your newborns.
Great. So I see it says baby on the bottle, so it's probably pretty easy to find. And you referenced newborns. I mean, that's something you could use pretty soon after birth?
It's safe for babies, and I think what's really important here is to understand that when you're using something that has chemicals in them, you do risk side effects with your newborn.
Right,
but when it's just saline, you can use it as much as needed.
Right.
And it really does help break up that buildup without having to use harsh chemicals, harsh medicines. Mm-hmm. And another important point is when you're pregnant, you really shouldn't be taking over-the-counter cough and cold medicine. So it's the same thing for a soon-to-be mom. Is what can I do? Well, it's the natural things. Steam showers. As with babies, humidifiers in the room to help calm some of your symptoms, keep things moist in there. And saline mist or the neti pot is probably the one thing I go to the most in the months. Mm-hmm. Is every time before bed, I use the neti pot, and again, the reason I love the Arm & Hammer neti pot is because it's mixed with baking soda, so it doesn't burn as much when you use it.
Okay, good. And it just seems like it's inevitable that whenever children get sick, parents get sick as well. But is there something that can be done to avert, a parent catching a cold from a child or vice versa?
You know what? Sometimes you're going to get sick, no matter what you do. But it gets back to, if your child is going to daycare and coming home, they carry germs. They're vectors for germs. So first thing when they come home is you help them wash their hands. You can carry around alcohol-based hand sanitizer for you and your children. And as best you can remind yourself constantly, if you have dirty hands, you don't want to be wiping things out of their eyes because you could be giving them a virus and vice versa. And it's just really being conscious, not obsessive,
right? Just
conscious that if I've been out shaking hands, touching doorknobs, I could have the cold virus on my hand. And same thing for your child. Mm-hmm. So it's not going to do any damage on my hands. Cold virus doesn't infect hands. Right. It only does its damages if I start touching my eyes and my nose. That's how we get sick.
Good. And you mentioned hand sanitizers. Are you okay with alcohol in the product? Should you try to stay away from that?
You know what? I actually recommend alcohol-based products because there are certain products out there with chemicals in them that we don't know what their effects may be. Obviously, a side effect of alcohol is dry skin, so keep a moisturizer handy. But it's effective and it's safe for the most part.
And then what about some myths surrounding the common cold? Do you hear that if you go outside with a wet head, you're going to get sick, or the changing temperatures outside make you sick? Are there some things you can address with parents protecting themselves as well as their children? It's a myth. The one that my mom taught me was I could never go outside with a wet head, no matter what. The only thing potentially is if you went outside and it were really cold out, you could suppress your immune system if you were out there for a prolonged period. But you don't get a cold from the cold, you get a cold from the virus. So I still say keep your kids warm when they go outside because you don't want to suppress their immune system, but they won't catch a cold from the cold. Okay, that's good. And what about traveling? What are some precautions families can take before either taking a car trip or plane travel?
Number one, just know you're going to be exposed during the cold and flu season to the cold and flu virus. So number one, something I haven't mentioned before, is anyone aged 6 months or older should get the flu vaccine as early as possible in the cold and flu season. We talked about alcohol-based sanitizers. They can be used to not only, if you're worried about your hands being dirty, you can use that to kill germs. You can wipe down tray tables as needed. The key here is just, again, being conscious but not obsessive about it. And then getting back to Simply Saline, I actually carry Simply Saline nasal mists in my travel bag because airplanes are dry. And everyone knows once your mucous membranes get really, really dry, they're susceptible to cracking, and it's a more hospitable environment to get infected. So on the plane, you can just spray it in your child's nose and your own, and it's an easy thing to do.
Great, and I'm really glad that you brought up flu shots because being pregnant, that's something I definitely did this year that I don't generally do. That seems like it's a big thing. Is that something you advocate as well for pregnant women to do?
Absolutely, and the reason is, remember that the flu virus, when you catch the flu, it can be more serious in very young kids and elderly with compromised immune system. Just like when the H1N1, it was more dangerous in pregnant women. And so, one of the beautiful modern advances of medicine, in my opinion, are things like the flu vaccine. They're very well studied. They're very safe. You might have some local discomfort. You might even have a slight immune response where you feel like you're coming down with something for a day, but that's your immune system getting ready to attack that flu virus if it ever does get into your system. And as a new mom to be or a new mother, you want to protect yourself, you want to protect your babies, and it's one of the things you can do proactively.
Great.
I wish there were a cold vaccine.
That's
maybe
a good,
someday.
Yeah, maybe you can work on that and we can talk about it.
All right, how about that?
Well, thank you so much for your time. This was
Thanks
great.
for having me.
Of course.
I appreciate
it's a
it.
Pleasure.